Just do a quick reaction video to several videos, and we're going to cover the U.S. economy facing major headwinds even with Trump elected. We cannot tax, cut, or grow out of this debt. $31 trillion, I think last I looked. $1 trillion is about spending $1 million a day since the birth of Christ, and you still wouldn't be at $1 trillion. That's how much money we're talking about. So wars, understandably, are fought for economics many times. A lot of people think it's for democracy, think it's to fight terrorists, no, it's economics. And they're going to be looking at war as a way to grow our way or steal our way out of this debt. Is what a usury-driven economy winds up doing. And tied into that is the Heartland Thesis, which another video talks about. We'll get into that in a second. He who controls the heartland controls the world. The geographical pivot of history, they called it. If you don't need the sea lanes and all the economics happens over land on the European and Asian landmass, well then places like the UK and the US are less useful because of the sea lanes having less significance. And as well, there's also ethnic considerations with some of the people driving these wars. We'll get into that. And the mandate for the electorate that Trump got, get us out of Ukraine, don't start wars with China, that's going to be ignored. Trump is going to answer to whatever the donors want. Just like last time, he's got another donor, some of the same people giving him all kinds of money to go start trouble with Iran. I hope he doesn't do it this time, but who knows. In the end, we're living in a multipolar world where the U.S. does not give to give the orders anymore. The United States has been using sanctions and war since the end of World War II, but before that too, but mostly since the end of World War II, to basically beat the world into submission economically. And we're not going to be able to get away with doing that. We're going to go over some videos to cover that. Start with a quick one about the economy. And since Trump took over, his situation now in 2024 is nothing like what it was when he got elected in 2016. Luke Groman here is going to talk about it.
When he came into office in 2016, or I guess inaugurated early 2017, U.S. big three expenditures, so entitlements, defense, and interest were, I'm going off the top of my head, I did the analysis in at the time, 65% of tax receipts all in. And now just the entitlements and the interest are 104% over the last 4 months.
There's no way in God's green earth you can tax enough to cover what he's talking about.
You throw defense on top of that, it's another 15, 18%, right? So you're comfortably over 120% of receipts. Your wiggle room, there is no wiggle room.
And remember, this is defense as we understand it now. It's expensive, but it's not terribly effective for the kinds of wars they want to fight.
And that then infers the advice I would give to President Trump, which is you have to get the dollar down big, or you've got to get U.S. debt to GDP down big right away. Or else if you try any of these other big moves, tariffs, trade policy, etc.
You leave it to Trump to try the big move. It's exactly what he's going to do.
It's not going to work. You're going to create the worst crisis in, since probably COVID and before that 2008, because you're going to go right back to the 2022 regime, which is dollar up big, rates up big, stocks down big, etc. And now, what are you going to do? Are you going to step in and bail out the banks again? Because now you've just completely politically discredited yourself.
Well, I'd say he's already discredited himself, but the point still stands. To talk more about the Heartland Thesis, this is Alistair Crook. He's the first person I've heard really mention this of any length.
I mean, Ukraine is part of this, but the basic element of it is much more straightforward. It is that the United States and the security establishment is not prepared to allow the heartland of Asia, what Mackinder in the 19th century said, who controls East Europe controls the heartland, and who controls the heartland? That's the whole area going over to China. Huge area, Siberia, right up to the borders of China. Who controls that controls the world. And they're not prepared to see that willy-nilly being taken into Russia's, China's, and the BRICS preserve, because it's too much of a loss. All the raw materials, all the energy, all these things that matter so much to modern society are there. So yes, they are indeed intent on this. And we're seeing this play out even today in Syria, where Syria, which in 2011 was targeted by the United States for its support, for its connections with Russia, but also for its support for the resistance, for Hezbollah. And today, Syria is under attack. Lebanon was under attack the other day. And now we have the war extending greatly throughout the region. I mean, a complete realignment of the war is taking place in the region.
This is not at all stretched. You can see he's talking about the geographical pivot of history. This is central Russia here, China, Asia. You can see if you control or you can get these nations to cooperate and act as one or as a team economically, like BRICS would mostly, then you don't need these oceans. You don't need the British Navy. You don't need the American whatever it is out here. Most of the action is going to be happening here. And this was the early 1900s that theory came out, and it's happening even more so today. It's a good channel I like to watch, Inside China Business. He's talking about this city here, Yuxi, China. It was determined recently using data. I forget which university did it, that half the world's population is in this circle right here. So if you do business in this area here, you're going to make some money. He talks a little bit about that here.
Some researchers had an interesting project. They wanted to find out what's the smallest circle you could draw on the surface of the Earth where over half the population of the world lived inside that circle. And it turns out it's much harder to do than they thought in the beginning. It took them several months. But then they finally got their answer, and here it is. Here is a circle. In the middle of that circle is Yuxi, China. Yuxi is in southwest China near Kunming. If you are a business executive,
this is all within the Heartland, by the way,
that wants to be a big company, this is a eureka moment. Eureka is what gold prospectors and miners would shout out when they found gold, because this is gold, this is money. It means that half the population of the planet is within a 6-hour plane ride of Kunming International Airport. It means that you can set up an office in this part of the world right here and be able to sell products and services to over 4 billion people. The other half of the world is spread out over Europe, Australia, Africa, North America, South America. But most of them are right here in this little circle.
Now, not all of BRICS is in there, obviously. Brazil's not. But the point is, if they form alliances like that, then there's really nothing to stop them. I mean, most of the weight is going to be here. China, India, train rides,
So the next question that a business executive is going to ask is, do these people actually have any money?
Yes, they do.
And here's another graphic that we really like. We've shown this a few times. The answer is yes, and they're about to be getting a lot more money. More people in this part of the world will be joining the consumer class in the next 6 years than exist in North America and in Europe combined.
If you want to set up a business, are you really going to be worried that America is the only place you can sell your consumer stuff, especially the way the economy might be going?
In other words, this is where the people are. This is also where the money is, and this is where more money is going to be. By the way, this is also where most of the world's STEM and IT graduates are now. This is where everybody who has a cell phone can press a button and buy products and have them delivered to his house or office the next day. Are we able to do that from your company? Are we able to buy products and services on the platforms here from your firm? Do you have sales reps and sales offices here in this part of the world?
I'll do better than that. Do you have a cell phone that can do all that in one? Something like Alipay or WeChat? Because right now, if you go to China, you're not using money in your pocket. You're not even using credit cards formally. You're using a one app on your phone, which, by the way, don't lose your phone in China. You'll be up Defecation Creek without a steering implement. But anyway, you get the idea. That is a lot of economic weight right there, exactly where Mackinder called it. And how's Ukraine going? As a way to chip away at that, this is what they're doing. They want to go around the edges, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Georgia, the Philippines. They're trying to use this as a way to weaken Russia. Why do they want to weaken Russia? They want to steal the resources. It's got nothing to do with freeing people in Ukraine, but how's that going?
NATO is desperately trying not to lose in Ukraine, and they're going to lose. They have no path to victory. Let's say, well, what if they use nuclear weapons to attack Russia? They're going to they'll be destroyed. So when I say a path to victory, is there a path that they can go forward where they will secure their interests and have peace? The answer is no. Does Russia have a path to victory? Absolutely. Because Russia will militarily defeat not just Ukraine, but will have defeated NATO. And you keep hearing some of these people talk that, oh, Russia could never face up to NATO. Bunk.
NATO is code for the U.S. and a few lapdogs.
Yeah, I mean, the reason NATO keeps expanding is it needs the additional forces because it can't supply the forces that are needed.
Right now, the UK military, the entire military, their Air Force, Navy, Army, everything, Royal Marines, that's smaller than the U.S. Marine Corps. That's how small. They can't even fill up Wembley Stadium, last I heard. Seriously.
Size of the U.S. Army has shrunk. Size of the British Army has shrunk. Size of the French Army has shrunk.
The French Army is tiny. They could barely get 2,000 guys to go on a safari to Africa, and we know that they're not doing so well down there either. The Chinese and the Russians are making more headway.
Over the years. And in shrinking, their actual capabilities to fight are diminished. None of the armies in these countries have been involved in a winning war since World War II.
That is the truth, and we are kidding ourselves if we think that it's going to go any differently. Colonel McGregor's been talking a lot about this, but something that he pointed out on just the whole perspective and where we're approaching things is valid.
The point is, and this is what Americans don't really get right now, they don't understand it, is the world is moving away from us. They don't want to be dependent on us. They don't want to be dependent on our finances, on our trade or anything else, because we've weaponized those so often.
Yep.
Now, can we get them back? Not right away and not for a while. We've got to change our behavior and the way we do business. We're not willing to do that at the moment. Just look at the Middle East.
We're definitely not willing to do that at the moment, and even in a few moments. But going back to Ukraine, this is a program where they talk Russia's war in Ukraine, perspectives from Jewish history. Ukraine has been a source country for a lot of the Jewish diaspora, and it still is a lot more than many people realize. He says here that Odessa was at its peak, 35% Jewish. Now Ukraine's population has dwindled significantly. But the point is, it's been a hodgepodge of cultures. It's not as if this country has been altogether one big happy family. But this goes into, I think, a lot of ethnic considerations as to policy over there. It's not just to chip away at Russia and to get at the heartland. It's also perhaps a little bit of revenge, a little bit of, I told you so, a little bit of, our opportunity. And what I mean by that, well, the pogroms during the Russian Civil War, a lot of the Jews who came over to America suffered from this, and particularly in Ukraine, January 1919, the Ukrainian military they killed 30,000 Jewish civilians. And various Ukrainian forces had murdered over 30,000 Jewish civilians. These stories were told down past through generations. So there are people who grew up with these stories that, made it their life's mission. And Victoria Nuland is probably one of the most famous ones. If you look at her bio, Victoria Nuland has been, dedicating her life towards this. She studied Russian, French, Russian literature before she even joined the State Department. Everything about this has been, I think, maybe a little payback, stories she heard growing up from her grandparents, who knows? But this is all about weakening Russia. It's not just economics. I think there's something more personal going on here.
I don't think any of us should be satisfied with what we're seeing on the ground in Ukraine. I think we have
This is from 8 years ago, by the way.
more work to do with our European partners to make the costs real for Russia on the sectoral side, if in fact we cannot have elections on May 25th. And that's what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah, so see, we get to determine who your president is. We get to determine what you do because we said so. But yeah, she's not the only one. But of course, she's no longer there anymore. She left. And where did she go? Oh, what do you know? She's over in Georgia. And Georgia is also one of these potential client states we've been trying to goad into a war with Russia. They did that once and got pretty spanked. I don't know that they're really all that into it. Anytime you hear about a protest over there, they were protesting a law that would have required foreign agents to register with the government. Now, why would anybody protest that? That was so manufactured, inorganic, brought up from the National Endowment for Democracy and the CIA. That on its face was just ridiculous. So, yeah, they're up to the old tricks. She's not the only one. Anthony Blinken's another one, and he grew up hearing stories from his stepdad, Samuel Pizar, who escaped from the concentration camps and told some dubious story about finding refuge in a U.S. tank that picked him up. He claimed to have been rescued by an African-American tank unit, but unfortunately that unit was nowhere near where he claimed to be rescued, and the other stories didn't really add up. But regardless, he has imparted this story to his son, and now Blinken is still in there, and he's not really in the best position to be a diplomat if he can't think diplomatically, but whatever. He's there, and I'm saying there's ethnic as well as economic considerations going on, but do not underestimate the broader economic. It's not just the military-industrial complex. BlackRock, JP Morgan, these are huge, and they're already licking their chops over rebuilding Ukraine. At least they were back when they thought they could do it. Then, as mentioned earlier, the Heartland Thesis involves overland transport of resources to Syria. What's going on in Syria? It's got nothing to do with freeing anybody or Bashar al-Assad being a bad guy. It's about getting rid of this potential pipeline in here. And we all know how we don't like pipelines. Oh yeah, the U.S. blew up that one. Of course, Snopes must have been paid to say that we didn't blow it up, because here they are. It's a joke. Seymour Hersh, I guess he made it all up. Snopes is just compromised. And not just there, but over in the Philippines, we're chipping away at that side. The Philippines stupidly signs a pact, even though they're going against their number one trading partner, which is China. They're signing a deal with us to bring in more military because we're going to chip away at that side. You see, all around the edges of the heartland, we're going to try to make this work for America desperately. We don't have the military to do it. We don't have the credibility to do it. BRICS is evidence of that. The world is getting tired of our crap, and it's all about the money. It's never about the freedom. I'm not optimistic as to where this is going to go, but you can be sure that they will be willing to try just about anything to keep the old order in place. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Hope it wasn't too convoluted. Thanks for watching. Peace out.